A few hundred meters from the Don River, Evergreen Brickworks was hit hard by the storm on July 16th. 4 feet of water rushed onto the community center grounds in under an hour. The site was evacuated as the torrent carried large metal cisterns, scattered picnic tables, and left a layer of mud and silt everywhere.
That's a good indicator of what it would have been like on the day of the flood, trudging through several feet of muddy water.
Months later, that silt remains on the plants and the recovery continues.
We at Evergreen Brickworks did experience really extreme and very quickly rising floodwaters. And we are actually a site that's been designed right from the beginning to accommodate floods. That day, the floods were too high and too fast, and they really overwhelmed those systems.
The nonprofit suffered $2.5 million in damage. Volunteers got it up and running within days, but longer-term repairs will be necessary. Those will cost $7 million more. Fundraising to pay for it continues with the goal of improving the climate change adaptations already on the site.
That's a good investment. Because that will mean that we can ensure that we're sustaining less damage and incurring less cost the next time it happens. But it's still a big mountain for us to climb.
Lindsay says much of the work being done to flood protect the brickworks can be applied on a larger scale across Toronto. Greening spaces that are concrete, building in native plants and rain gardens, and converting to permeable pavement are all part of the solution. Evergreen Brickworks does this work in the community to create a sponge city that soaks up water when it rains.
We really focus much more on those spaces that we share, where we see a really significant opportunity. And often, those spaces are hiding in plain sight.
Toronto is working to green public spaces, including its Green Roof and Green Boulevard programs. And some of its other natural flood prevention projects are larger.
The city has 85 stormwater ponds, just like this one at Earl Bales Park. They help prevent flooding by gathering stormwater runoff. They also improve water quality and prevent erosion in their areas. And experts say we need more of them.
So we need more solutions that allow the ground basically to soak up water.
This environmentalist wants to see the city expand its programs to convert concrete into green space.
And so the plan does speak to that, but clearly this needs to be scaled up, this kind of work, and there needs to be thought given to how to bring the plan in line with our current climate reality, which we know is increased precipitation and more severe weather more frequently.
The city must also encourage the owners of large parking lots to make changes, she says.
Because ultimately, we want to reduce hard surface. It's not just about paying for stormwater management, which is obviously crucial in the context of these floods, but it's also about shifting to, as you mentioned, permeable surfaces so that we don't continuously experience this problem as a city going into the future.
To all those people who are creating big problems and paying nothing, which is the parking lots and the big commercial establishments with flat roofs. They just dump all of their water into everybody else's basement.
Councillor Diane Sachs has been advocating for that conversion for years, including when she served as Ontario's Environmental Commissioner. Paying for it is hard, she says.
The fundamental issue is that the city cannot control flooding entirely at public expense on public land. Private landowners produce the majority of the runoff and have to take a proportionate share of the responsibility. This should be a polluter pay system.
Right now, homeowners and renters fund the city's flood prevention work through their water usage, not what flows off their property into sewers.
So if you live in an apartment building and you take a shower, you are subsidizing a parking lot somewhere in Toronto. This is outrageous. It needs to stop.
But that will mean a renewed debate over how to assess the financial impact of stormwater. It's complicated, and as a result has been a political lightning rod at City Hall. Some opponents of those potential fees, called stormwater charges, have dubbed them a rain tax. Mayor Olivia Chow says she's open to a variety of approaches, but the city will need to pay for the billions in work required somehow.
We can't just spend. We also have to make sure we have revenue for it. So how do we get the revenue? I think we should start with those that have more, should pay more. For example, big commercial parking lots that turns into parking lakes.
It takes extensive action, and that we don't have a lot of time in which to act. If we want to see flood resiliency improve in our cities, then my suggestion is investing in nature-based solutions and sponge cities is the quickest way to see a return on investment.
Just weeks after that July storm, City Council asked city staff to investigate more flood mitigation measures. That will include another examination of the controversial stormwater charges. That report is expected back later this year, just ahead of the budget. Shawn, Jeffords, CBC News, Toronto.